And this is where it is awesome to talk about, because the other side is amazing. It's amazing.
Today we have Rose on the show, and Rose, I heard you had a near-death experience that was equal parts frightening and beautiful. Can you please share your experience with me?
It was March, and so dark when you wake up in the morning and go to work, and dark when you get off work and eat dinner, and just the grind of working from home. I was feeling the grind of life. There was this moment where I remember having a feeling of, is this it? If this is it, I don't want it. Because it wasn't just a thought, it was more than that. It was almost like a declaration that I was like, if this is it, I don't want it. And I meant it. That was about a day before I started feeling sick. I was so busy at work that I worked through the day, and I was aching and my lower back ached, and I just did not feel good. And so when the workday finally wrapped up, I went to the urgent care, and they did a strep test and a flu test and said, yeah, you have a fever, go home. And I went home, and I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And I remember I'm not a real selfie taker, but somebody asked me how I was doing, and I had taken a selfie of myself, and that's the last thing I remember before I went to sleep. And when I woke up, it was dark outside, it was evening, and I did not feel right. I felt doomed, is how I felt. And I stood up and went to the bathroom, and I was wobbly, and like my movements were jerky, and I fainted and fell backward and hit my head really hard on the shower track. And I came to, and my head was bleeding, and I was laying there. I think I'd had a seizure, and I was like, wow, something is so wrong. So I went crawling into the other room, and my then fiance was sleeping on the couch because he didn't want to wake me. And I was like, I gotta go, and because something's not right. And he took me right back into the urgent care, and we're looking me over, and I passed out. And when I came back, I heard him telling somebody that I just had a seizure. And that's the last thing I really remember of the real world before everything happened. And I heard and I felt this clap. It was like if you took two boards and you just smacked them together. This is where it gets really weird. Um, it was like I entered another space. It was a black background with neon pinstripe outlines, like a grid like Tron, weirdly. Only it was hot pink, magenta, and black. This being perceived me enter the space and turned his attention toward me and evaluated me. And the outline of him was humanoid and giant, ripped, like muscular. He had a tail, which is weird, like a big, massive tail. Ruthless, malevolent intelligence, not anything I wanted to have its attention be on me. And the perception I had was that it's a simulation. This is not this is not what we think it is at all. And he assessed me for what I was, and that occurred to me as color. He was looking for whether or not I was pink or purple, I think, but I was blue-green. What does that mean? I have no clue. Okay. And I knew it was an Archon, not the Archon. That didn't occur to me. I felt it was an Archon, and I remember thinking, oh my God, there's more than one of these things. And I was terrified, petrified, and I was not of use. And so he flicked his attention away. And then again, it was nothingness. And that was it. That was the entirety of that encounter. And I hope I never encounter that being again. And then I found myself floating in this place. And this gets really hard to talk about. It was ambiently lit. It was womb-like or cave-like and kind of a tan brown. And I was floating on my back, and I was surrounded by these low beings that they were misshapen. Some of them had like arms that had a couple bends where they weren't supposed to be. Some of them didn't have mouths, or their heads were lumpy, and some of them were more formed than others, and they were taunting me and saying just terrible things. and they weren't touching me at all, but it felt physical. It was agony. It was terrible. And they were jeering and taunting and saying these awful things to me. And I remember the whole time pushing back and just saying, no, I'm not ugly or terrible or stupid or any of the awful things that they were all just throwing at me. I felt they were wrong. I didn't understand why I was there, and I didn't know how to get out. And again, I didn't think of praying because it just wasn't in my. I mean, legitimately, they say there are no atheists in foxholes. I don't know what kind of hole I was in, but I didn't think of asking for help. And looking back, I wish I had, because who knows how it could have been different. But anyway, I don't know how long this went on. I don't. I was in the ICU on a ventilator and dialysis with sepsis with multi-organ failure for 3 weeks. How long did that torment go on? It seemed like an eternity of eternities, and it would like go on and like hit a crescendo and then sort of start to fade. And I would feel like, oh my God, is it lessening? Is it going to be over? Is this over? And it wouldn't be. It would start in a different way. It would be like they would take a different attack or approach to what they were doing. It was horrifying. That went on for an unknown amount of time, and it was terrible. And without any warning, I found myself looking at a hospital bed and a woman in the bed, and I almost didn't recognize myself because sepsis makes your body just blow up like a Macy's Day Parade balloon. Really, it does. You just fluid. So I was just huge. I had tubes like coming out everywhere, and people were around me, and I wasn't above the bed like a lot of people seem to report. I was like behind the people standing there working on me, and there was like a geyser of blood coming out of my mouth. I guess what had happened is that the ventilator cuff had broken in my throat or cut me in the throat, and I was bleeding, and they had to take it out, and they were having a really hard time reintubating me. Someone tried and couldn't. And when I came into the scene, what I saw was them working on me, and my mom was praising a guy, and I'm not going to say his name. He has a nickname that I remembered and reported to the people that were actually physically there, and they were like, yeah, you heard it. He was able to get me reintubated, and my mom, who is a nurse, was praising him for having done so. And this is where it is awesome to talk about, because the other side is amazing. It's amazing. It's everything that you could possibly imagine and more, and you're more. We can't imagine what it's like to be our full and perfect self without the attachment to the ego that we live today. That's an abstract concept. But I want to say something that I haven't heard a lot of people say is that so is this life when we're over there. I've come to believe that we do sign up for journeys and missions and soul contracts and lessons and all that good stuff. It all sounds doable when you're living the perfect life. You know, you're over there and you are love, and you're your perfect self, and you're in love, because that's what it is. And somebody's like, oh, abusive parents, divorces, loss of this and that. Yeah, sign me up, I'll do it all. You have no connection to this and the intensity and condensed, boiled down, raging emotions that we feel over here. There's no comparison. And that's the real life. This is the dream. I was not thinking about my family. I was not thinking about people who needed me. I didn't even want to consider that. I was watching, and in a very abstract way, I was thinking, I wonder if she'll live. She, not me. And then I was back in that low place again. And that went on for a while. At some unknown point in time, there was timelessness, it was an eternity, both. I felt this presence of love on a level that is not easy to even comprehend. And the entity that I encountered, my feeling is that she is the Great Mother. She was made out of stars, the perception of a veil more than hair. And so there's something Mary-like, but I don't think she's Mary. I don't. She is an originating goddess entity. I don't know what she is. These are thoughts that came to me as this presence entered that space and retrieved me out of it. Okay? And she's like nothing I was ever even prepared for or had considered. In my searching, I had never delved deep into like the Green Terra figure or Mary. So to consider a female deity when I really didn't even, I thought of God as being not even that guy, right, up on a throne with a beard or whatever, but not even really male, not even really anything other than everythingness. So to have a female spiritual entity of massively unconditional love come into my place of torment and absolute exquisite suffering was mind-boggling. And she is something else. She is as other and ruthless in her own way as that archon was. She is strong medicine. She loves everything the same. And when we talk about unconditional love, we're thinking of our kids, so we're thinking of our dog, and we're thinking of, you still have to be good, right? You, as a parent, you may love your children, but you're still going to tell them to behave. And what I would share about her is that she loves the tapeworm. She loves the plague. She loves you. She loves me. She loves the dog that's dying because it got its head stuck in a paint can. And she loves its death and experience of that. And she loves the person who pulls that paint can off of the dog's head and lets it live. She is everything. The poem Thunder Perfect Mind sums her up utterly. I didn't know about it until after. When I went home after all of this, there were certain things, many things that I had to try to investigate and seek into. And I went searching for information about the Great Mother and figures that could be that, which eventually led me to the Gnostic texts. And that poem is about the entity that I met. Absolutely, without question, that sums her up. She's a sum of paradoxical contradictions, and she's beyond anything we ever would understand. But coming back to that experience, so she entered that space, and this one was really rough for me because, again, I felt her love, right? And those low beings, as she was pulling me out, said to her, then why did you start us up then, if you're taking her away? And I felt this understanding, this comprehension that I don't believe that she set them on me. I don't know about that, I don't know about that. But I know that they are not outside of her. They're her children too. That's what I mean about her, She doesn't pick and choose and say, this one's good, this one's bad. Everything that happens, this whole happening, she celebrates it. And she's love, utter love. So it's really hard to describe, but so we're in this space. She comes in, and it's like we turned and lifted and raised and went to another place. And it was so beautiful because we were standing on the edge of everythingness. And it was as though the infinity of creation was laid out in front of us like a mountain range. So I'm standing beside her and we're looking at this gorgeousness. And it's not like the pictures that you see of space with the individual galaxies. It was more if you turned all that on its side and you looked at it crosswise, black above, black below, and this infinity of happeningness was in front of us. And she downloaded, I don't even know what, because I know she was talking to me. And I know that she downloaded a ton of information to me, but it wasn't anything that I could comprehend or put into words for you now. But I encounter it now, where I will be listening to something and I know when it's true and I understand things differently than I would have before. It's more like this is a full of resources that she gave me that help me move forward in ways that I can't even put into words. But it was a very brief but intense encounter. And then after that, the rest of it was just a hospital stay. I feel like my mind was blown wide open because when they finally were able to take the tube out of my mouth and let me start breathing again, and I was coming back to understanding what had happened to me, because I had no idea. I was just like, what in the world is going on? I wake up in this hospital room just huge and can't even lift my hand to my chin, couldn't hold the phone, couldn't roll over. I mean, I was messed up. I felt like I could hear the thoughts of everybody in the room, and I could even hear people's conversations far away when they were praying for me or talking about me. And I saw children who had died in the hospital. Every night at about 2 in the morning, they would come frolicking through the rooms. They were just playing, and I could see them. Crazy, I know that sounds just nuts,
No,
but
it's beautiful.
it's they weren't unhappy either. They were just having a good time by being where they were. Eventually, I went home and I had to process all that. I had to try to get my head around it. This happened in 2017, and there's a big part of me that was terrified. I was like, did I go to hell? What was that? What was that, and why? I didn't feel like I had deserved it, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm flawed like everyone on this planet, and I couldn't even let myself thinking about the horror of the torment, because it would put me right back into it. I had a really bad PTSD afterwards, so now that I have more distance from it, it's very possible that those were lower, planar. Like, I wasn't dead, but I wasn't alive, and maybe I was accessible to them while I was so sick. And the true NDE that I had was when I was outside my body watching them work on me and almost died. That's what I think, but I don't know for sure. I may never know for sure. And the Great Mother, never have I felt her again. And I haven't sought her. I don't feel like she needs that or wants that. I know a lot of people with sepsis have terrible, terrible dreams and delirium in the hospital. So the moments of delirium where I was hallucinating, I can tell you about those. Those were me being out of my head because of the meds and the illness. The experience of being tormented, that felt spiritual. And I don't know why, for sure. I don't know what purpose it served, but I can tell you that when I came back, I was delighted to be alive, and I was still filled with love. And I remember feeling so ungrateful because I had wished it away. Is this it? If it is, I don't want it. That thought, because life can be hard. Life can be so painful. I was always one of those people that believed that if I beat myself up and I was really hard on myself, that I would achieve more. Very type A. I came back gentle with me above all. I think that maybe even that self-talk with those entities assaulting me with the kind of soundtrack that we all have of you're no good, you're not going to make it, this is bad, you're bad. And I was just like, I'm not. No, I'm not. At all. None of that's true. And I came back with this grounding and self-love that made me so much more gentle with everyone, because you don't realize, you think that if you're nice to other people, that you can be mean to yourself. That's hogwash. That's hogwash. You have to be gentle here first and here first, or else the other stuff is just a cheap veneer. And I know we go on beyond this life now. I can't explain it. I can't tell you why it is so, or how it is true that I know we're in a simulation of some kind. I don't know what that means or why or how. Like, are we in a simulation inside something real, or is it all a simulation? I can't tell you that. But we go on after we die. I have no fear of death at all. And I just hope I have the presence of mind that if anything like that should ever happen to me again, that I ask for help. But maybe I needed to go through all that, as horrific as it was. But I want to share how I got past the PTSD. I discovered that if I journaled about the experiences that were very triggering, and then I sat with it as long as I could tolerate and kept going until I was just like, okay, enough, tap out. And then I would play Tetris or StarCraft, which is another kind of higher executive functioning game. And then I would take a nap because it was exhausting. And I found that doing that day after day for about a month, I got to the point where I could think about it. And now I don't have the PTSD experience of being thrown back into those horrific feelings and emotions. So I hope that helps anyone else out there that might be suffering from PTSD.
How real was it? Could it have been a dream?
Definitely did not feel like just a dream. Dreams are disconnected and disjointed in a way. They're like an abstract painting. And the sustained nature of that limbo place, that was incredibly real and extraordinarily viscerally painful. There was no like checking out from it or ignoring it or getting away from it until it was over. And then the feeling of being on the other side and seeing myself in the bed and perceiving it as other, and the way that everything's so good over there and is so just the radical nature of how okay you are, that was realer than real. And again, that reminds me just how not real this place is when you're over there. When you're over there, you're like, oh, that's just a dream, no biggie. You really are laissez-faire about signing up for these hellacious missions. You don't really, and then when you're done with it and you look back, you're like, no, I don't want to go back there. But you're not like, you don't feel what we feel over here. They're different. They're distinctly different, and both are real. But that's more real than this place, even though this place feels so intense.
What do you want people to get out of your experience?
Self-love, vital. You got to get there. Do it. Drop the self-talk. Stop thinking that there's any value in treating yourself any differently than you would want to treat others. So that's huge. We go on after we die. And then for those of you, especially who've had a negative experience, I know from the struggle I felt of trying to come to terms with why, because I don't feel like I had done anything that would warrant that. I don't know that I perfectly understand that. Maybe it was to clear my family line. Maybe it was to burn out that negative self-talk and make me love myself. I don't know what purpose it served, but I guess I would encourage people to just let that go. It doesn't have to mean that you were a bad person. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's simply okay for your experience to be your experience. And if you feel shame about the fact that yours is weird or different or even awful, like mine, parts of mine were literally the most horrific thing I could imagine. But I'm coming forward to tell about it because I know I'm not a bad person. And I don't think that's how things are on the other side anyway. I think that's a lot of hoo-ha. I'm not saying go out and be mean to people or selfish or anything like that. I'm saying that it's not as simple as that. It isn't. When I went over to the other side more truly, and I don't even think I went all the way, I didn't see heaven, I didn't see a tunnel. Nobody was there telling me you're bad and you're going to go to hell forever. And so it might sound weird and contradictory given that I was being tormented and that whole thing, but what I come back with is that our experience is perfect for us. It's what we need. So if you're out there living with this and you are wondering, why was mine negative and what does it say about me? Try to release that. Keep
Thank
it
you.
up. Thank you. You inspired me to tell what is true today for me because of the way that you tell other people's stories and help them to deliver that message. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, and I love that you reached out to me and you didn't have like a book to sell, because sometimes those kind of
I
wear on my
know.
soul. Sometimes there's a handful of you that have come and just be like, I just want to share my experience because it helped people, and those are my
And be
favorite. So
vulnerable and authentic.
yeah,
And it's funny because sometimes I wonder, I ask myself, well, gosh, is that what you're supposed to do? I don't know. I mean, I just went back to work in IT and, you know what I mean? I went back to the same job, but I don't know. I hope I'm doing it right. You always want to make sure you don't have to relive certain harsh lessons.